Hey, welcome back. It is Eric Arnold here in the Politics Barn. This is a breaking news edition of the Politics Barn, Wednesday afternoon, June 8th. For those of you who may be new, generally I make handicapping videos on sports, primarily baseball, college football, college basketball, viewed by tens of people who are looking for winners, which I generally provide them, viewed by tens of people. But I also have a history and a political science degree, and I'm a political junkie, and I just can't help myself the way things are going in this country. So when I see a story that's interesting, I have to comment on it. And that's what we're doing here today. There is a breaking story. I guess it's breaking today. It's one of these stories that's incredibly important, but is basically, in other words, a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it. Did the tree actually fall? It's an incredibly important story, but not getting a lot of coverage because we all know there's suppression of news in this country. Freedom of speech is under widespread attack in this country. So here's what you need to know about this voter fraud story. Today, it was reported by Fox News that a former Democrat congressman in Philadelphia pled guilty, I guess, in court to fraudulently running up the vote in elections down in Philadelphia. He's bribing judges of elections to fraudulently add votes to certain candidates' totals. Now, if you have paid attention, if you're not new, I have done previous episodes about voter fraud. I viewed and critiqued the 2000 Mules documentary by Dinesh, what's his name? I myself have elected myself as a poll worker here in my little precinct. I am the majority inspector. I'm not the judge of elections. I'm the majority inspector. I did that so I could see the interior workings of how these elections are supposed to work, how they do work in practice, and is there a way that the system can be cheated? Not that I want to cheat it. I just want to know if the stories I'm being told by the Democrats who insist that cheating never happens ever, and it's all lies whenever somebody says, well, I think some funny stuff went on down there. That's not true. They all laugh at us and say, you falsely are accusing us of fraudulently doing whatever. It's all in the up and up most secure election ever, etc., blah, blah, blah. Well, that's why I wanted to get in on the inside and be a poll worker so I can see how this system works. So I have some experience now. I've been through one primary election, this most recent one, and I did a video on that. So let me give you the details of this, right? The devil's in the details. This is the press release by the Biden Justice Department. And it's dated Monday, June 6th, for immediate release. Dateline, Philadelphia. The headline, former U.S. Congressman and Philadelphia political operative pleads guilty to election fraud charges. Again, this is from the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Dateline, Philadelphia. United States Attorney Jennifer Arbiter Williams announced today that former U.S. Congressman Michael Ozzie Myers, 79, of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, pleaded guilty today to conspiracy to deprive voters of civil rights, bribery, obstruction of justice, falsification of voting records, and conspiring to illegally vote in a federal election for orchestrating schemes to fraudulently stuff the ballot boxes for specific Democrat candidates in the 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 Pennsylvania elections. Then it goes on. 39th Ward, 36th Division. Now, I looked that up. That's a little voting block. In Philadelphia, they have wards, and within the wards, they divide them up into divisions. Each division might have hundreds of voters. It's not as big, say, as the precincts here in Berks County. I guess some of them are. In other words, my little precinct has probably 1,200 voters. These ones down there, the 36th, I looked this up. The 36th probably has about 600 voters, I'm guessing. That's a guesstimate. Around 600 voters. At any rate, it continues here. 39th Ward, 36th Division. Specifically, Myers admitted in court to bribing the judge of elections for the 39th Ward, 36th Division in South Philadelphia, Domenick J. Demuro, in a fraudulent scheme over several years. Demuro, who was separately charged and pleaded guilty in May 2020, was responsible for overseeing the entire election process and all voter activities of his division in accord with federal and state election laws. All right, let's set that aside for a moment. So Demuro, 2 years ago, pled guilty to fraud and what else? It doesn't say all the things he pled guilty to, but he pled guilty 2 years ago. So let's not give the Biden DOJ too much credit. It took them 2 years to finish this case up. So clearly they had no intentions of rushing to justice on this. But I guess they were forced to finish it up at some point. So here's the rest of it. Okay, continues. The voting machines at each polling station, including in the 39th Ward, 36th Division, generate records in the form of a printed receipt documenting the use of each voting machine. This printed receipt, also known as the results receipt, shows the vote totals, and the judge of elections and other election board officials at each polling place attest to the accuracy of the machine results. Now, I can attest to you, that's true. Myers admitted to bribing Demuro to illegally add votes for certain candidates of their mutual political party in primary elections. Some of these candidates were individuals running for judicial office whose campaigns had hired Myers, and others were candidates for various federal, state, and local elective officials that Myers favored for a variety of reasons. Myers would solicit payments from his clients in the form of cash or checks as consulting fees, and then use portions of these funds to pay Demuro and others to tamper with the election results. After receiving payments ranging from between $300 to $5,000 per election from Myers, Demuro would add fraudulent votes on the voting machine, also known as ringing up votes, quote unquote, ringing up votes, for Myers' clients and preferred candidates, thereby diluting the value of ballots cast by actual voters. At Myers' direction, Demuro would add these fraudulent votes to the totals during Election Day, and then would later falsely certify that the voting machine results were accurate. Myers is also accused of directing Demuro to lie to investigators about the circumstances of the bribes and the ballot stuffing scheme, period. Well, there. How about that? Now, is that all? Why, no, it's not. It goes on. 39th Ward, 2nd Division. So apparently Myers is not only bribing just one judge of election, he's bribing two. So this is the other judge that he's bribing in the 39th Ward, 2nd Division. Myers also admitted to conspiring to commit election fraud with a former judge of elections for the 39th Ward, 2nd Division in South Philadelphia, Marie Beren. All right, now let's pause here. Where is this? Well, this is in South Philadelphia. It's just north the Schuylkill Expressway. If you know where the ballparks are, if you go north from the ballparks area, you cross over Packer Avenue, you cross over the Schuylkill Expressway, then you get into a lot of South Philadelphia neighborhoods. That's what we're talking about. If you have no idea where Philadelphia is or what we're talking about here, you're probably talking about a lot of people like Rocky Balboa, Paulie. This is the type of South Philadelphia person maybe that from Rocky movies, of course, that would be in these neighborhoods. So that's probably what we're talking about with these two divisions, if you will. All right, back to the press release. Beren, that's the judge in the 2nd Division, Beren, who was charged separately and pleaded guilty in October 2021, was the de facto judge of elections and effectively ran the polling places in her division by installing close associates to serve as members of the Board of Elections. Myers admitted that he gave Beren directions to add votes to candidates supported by him, including candidates for judicial office whose campaigns actually hired Myers, and other candidates for various federal, state, and local elective offices preferred by Myers for a variety of reasons. Myers acknowledged in court that on almost every election day, Myers transported Beren to the polling station to open the polls. During the drive to the polling station, Myers would advise Beren which candidates he was supporting so that Beren knew which candidates should be receiving fraudulent votes. Inside the polling place and while the polls were open, Beren would advise actual in-person voters to support Myers' candidates and also cast fraudulent votes in support of Myers' preferred candidates on behalf of voters she knew would not or did not appear physically at the polls. Let me read that again. Beren would advise actual in-person voters support Myers' candidates and also cast fraudulent votes in support of Myers' preferred candidates on behalf of voters she knew would not or did not physically appear at the polls. Just like I told you people that was a way we could cheat if we so desired. I knew it, I told you. Now, back to the press release. During Election Day itself, Myers conferred with Beren via cell phone while she was at the polling station about the number of votes cast for his preferred candidates. Beren would report to Myers how many legit votes, meaning actual voters, had appeared at the polls and cast ballots. If the actual turnout was high, Beren would add fewer fraudulent votes in support of Myers' preferred candidates. From time to time, Myers would instruct Beren to shift her efforts from one preferred candidate to another. Specifically, Myers would instruct Beren to throw support, quote unquote, to throw support behind another candidate during Election Day if he concluded that his first choice was comfortably ahead. Beren and her accomplices from the Board of Elections would then falsify the polling books, again told you so, and the list of voters and party enrollment for the 39th Ward 2nd Division by recording the names, party affiliation, and order of appearances for voters who had not physically appeared at the polling station to cast his or her ballot in the election. Again, told you so. Beren took pains to ensure that the number of ballots cast on the machines was a reflection of the number of voters signed into the polling books and the list of voters. After the polls closed on Election Day, Beren and her associates would falsely certify the results. Voting, quote, this is, quote, voting is the cornerstone of our democracy. If even one vote has been illegally cast or if the integrity of just one election official is compromised, it diminishes faith in the process, unquote, said U.S. Attorney Williams. Votes are not things to be purchased, and democracy is not for sale. If you are a political consultant, election official, or work with the polling places in any way, I urge you to do your job honestly and faithfully. That is what the public deserves and what the federal government will enforce. Quote unquote. One thing you can say about Ozzie Myers, his values have long been out of whack, said Jacqueline McGuire, special agent in charge of the FBI's Philadelphia division. Decades ago, he valued a fake sheik's bribes more than the ethical obligations of his elected federal office. Now she's talking about the ab scam scandal back around 1980. Ozzie Myers was in Congress back around the late 70s, 1980. He was kicked out of Congress because he was taking bribes in a sting from a sheik who was actually an FBI agent. So the guy's guy's been a crook from way back, but At any rate, where were we? Okay, this time around, he valued his client's money and his own whims more than the integrity of multiple elections and the will of the Philadelphia voters. Free and fair elections are critical to the health of our democracy, which is why protecting the legitimacy of the electoral process at every level is such a priority for the FBI. That's Jacqueline McGuire, special agent in charge of the FBI's Philadelphia division. The guilty plea entered today is satisfying the culmination of tireless work by our Pennsylvania state troopers, the FBI, and the Justice Department. It is imperative that the citizens of this Commonwealth have faith in a fair voting process. We will remain committed to prioritizing these investigations, working with our other federal partners to fully investigate and prosecute anyone who attempts to impede or alter the election process. And that's Captain James Katita. Captain James Katita, Director, Special Investigations Division, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Pennsylvania State Police. That's a mouthful. This case was investigated by the FBI with assistance from the Pennsylvania State Police. It is being prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorneys Eric L. Gibson, Richard P. Burnett, with assistance from Richard C. Pilger, Director of Elections Crime Branch, Criminal Division, Public Integrity Segment, U.S. Department of Justice, period. That's the end of the press release. So there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start with what's in the press release. So Ozzie Myers is stuffing the ballot box. He's found willing accomplices inside these precincts where, for money or whatever else, they will go ahead and ring up. I mean, I found that interesting that they actually had like a term that they used there, ring up. Well, that kind of led me to believe that this seems like a common practice. Like, we all know what that's called. It's called ringing up the vote tally. It's like, really? We don't ring up the vote tally here in Berks County. Is that what goes on in Philadelphia? Because I've been told it doesn't. I've been told absolutely not. Everything is on the up and up down there. So I found that odd that they would use a colloquialism to describe what they're doing down there. Ring up the vote tally. Okay, so he's ringing up the vote tally with his inside men or women. I was told that didn't happen, but I told you people that could happen. When I went down to the primary and I'm inside the room there and I'm the one in charge of signing in the voters, and I told you, everybody in that room, we're all Republicans, even though somebody is supposed to be from the opposite party. But no one signed up as a Democrat in our little precinct, so we just had all Republicans. The judge was a Republican. I was a Republican. The minority inspector was a Republican. The machine inspector was a Republican. And then we had a fifth woman, the clerk. She was a Republican. We were all of the same mindset. So, had we had an inclination to do what they're describing here, yeah, we could have done it. Just like, what was her name? Marie Beren? Let me make sure I get that name right. Marie Beren, B-E-R-E-N, Beren. Yeah, we could have done that. Sure. Now, I had to, after I made that video where I talked about how that vulnerability was there, I checked my bias a little bit. I said, well, we could have done it, but we didn't. Could they do that sort of thing down in Philadelphia? Yeah, I think they do sometimes. That's what I said. And I thought to myself, well, why did I say that? In other words, why do I think that that sort of thing could never happen here in Berks County, but down in Philadelphia, maybe that stuff goes on? Is it because, I'm an inherent racist? That's what they tell me, basically, that I'm white, so therefore I must be a racist. So I thought about that. It's like, well, no, that's not why I think that. Why I think that is because there's no oversight in Philadelphia. There's no oversight. In other words, here in Berks County, we turn our stuff in to somebody in Reading, the county seat. Berks County is probably 55-45 Republican. There are a lot of Democrats here in Berks County. There are a lot of Democrats in elected offices. So I know our work is going to be critiqued at some point and reviewed to make sure it's on the up and up. And some of those people looking at our work are going to be Democrats. So probably right there, that would keep us from cheating. I don't want to go to jail, and I don't want to cheat. So that would keep me from doing that right there. But in Philadelphia, everybody down there is a Democrat, particularly the people in the positions of power. All the judges, all the lawyers, all the judges of election. So they can do whatever they want because no one's looking. No one's looking. I have no idea how this got out to the Pennsylvania State Police. Probably a complaint. Probably an inside man flipped on Ozzie. In other words, he got pissed because he was promised $5,000 and got stiffed. So then that was probably like, you know what? F you, I'm going to fix your little red wagon. And that's probably how this ball got rolling. I highly doubt that the FBI or the Pennsylvania State Police found this information on their own. It probably was presented to them on a silver platter by a complainant that was involved in the process to begin with. That's my guess. But so this has been happening. What aggravates the living hell out of people on my side of the aisle is this sort of stuff is here. This is factual. This is being released by the Joe Biden Justice Department. This has happened. It's a fact. When we say voter fraud goes on, we're laughed at. We're told we're liars. We're told that we're falsely claiming that the election was stolen. I don't say that Donald Trump would have won the election. All I say is there was cheating that went on. There's no question there was cheating that went on. Did it flip the election to Biden? That I cannot be sure of. He might have won anyway. But I know there was cheating that goes on, and for you to claim otherwise insults my intelligence and pisses me off. So here's more indications that this kind of cheating goes on. Now, the press release, this basically just says, well, this just went on in the primary. In other words, Myers was simply doing his work in the primaries and doesn't make any mention of the general election. Well, if you know anything about these big cities, the primary is the election. In other words, whoever's on the Democrat ticket in Philadelphia is the nominee. A Republican is not going to beat a Democrat in an area where 80% of the voters are registered Democrat. My parents live in an area like this where it's a huge registration advantage in the city for Democrats. So they had to register as Democrats to have any participation at all in the election process. Pennsylvania is a closed primary, for those of you that don't understand what that is. Some states you can vote in either party you want. In other words, you can just walk up and say, I've decided that even though I'm a Republican, I want to vote in the Democrat primary today. That's known as an open primary. Pennsylvania doesn't do that. Only Democrats are allowed to participate in a Democrat primary and vice versa. Only Republicans who can vote in a Republican primary. Independents can't vote in either one. They get to vote in their little independent primary, which doesn't exist, so they don't get to vote at all. So if you want to participate in the Democrat versus Democrat races, you have to be a registered Democrat. So that's where all the action is in these local elections. So Myers is putting his thumb on the scale when the money's on the table. In other words, where the action is. That's when he is making sure that his guys are getting the benefit of his, quote, expertise, i.e. bribery. Now, if you don't think that sort of stuff goes on in the general election, I got a bridge to sell you. In other words, oh, well, they do this in the primaries because that's just the way things are done down in Philadelphia. You know, that's Democrat machine politics. We all know this goes on. This is just Democrat on Democrat crime. And you're telling me they don't cheat in the general election to make sure Hillary or Joe Biden beats Donald Trump? Come on. Give me a break. These people have no trouble ringing up the votes. I've read all the years they were doing it. And let's talk again about some stuff that's not in this press release. One, you got this guy Demuro, who was the election judge in one of these divisions where this was going on. He pled guilty 2 years ago, May of 2020. What happened to this guy? Best I could figure out, he vanished. I couldn't tell when he got sentenced. I couldn't tell how much time he got sentenced to. It's like he just disappeared off the face of the internet. What happened to the guy? Did he die? Was he just quietly let go? You know, what happened to this guy? And what else does this guy know exactly? In other words, that's it? You were just taking bribes, just you? I told you that in that room is not just the judge of elections. There's other people in that room. Were they getting paid off too? I'm the majority inspector. I'm there. There's no way that judge is ringing up the votes without me seeing him do it, without me being complicit in him doing it. What about me? Was I under arrest? Was I questioned? What do I know? Was I getting paid? You know, it says nothing about these other people. Same with the other judge there. You know, there's more than one person that was involved in this in both locations. They're just focusing on the judge of elections. It doesn't say anything about the other poll workers that are equally complicit in this conspiracy. So I don't know. Are they just ignoring those? And they're, well, that's just small fish. We'll let them get away. Doesn't matter. It's not really important. And it took 2 years from Demuro giving up Ozzie Myers to the actual, I guess he's cut a deal now or whatever and pled guilty. 2 years this guy's holding out the fort. Probably DOJ was hoping this guy would just die or something, and then they could just like close the case and they wouldn't have to admit that this shit goes on. But there's so many unanswered questions that goes on with this. And I cannot believe that this is the only place that this sort of thing was going on, that this was just this one guy's little bailiwick that he was going on. And let's talk about the biggest issue of all that I haven't even mentioned. Who was paying Myers? Who was paying Myers? Where is that case? What Democrat officials down in Philadelphia are corrupt as a $3 bill because they paid this bastard to get elected to office. Who are they? What do they know? We don't know any of this. Where's the Biden Justice Department on that? You know, one of the reasons this has even seen the light of day, this is probably, like I said, May 2020, Domenick Demuro pled guilty. Well, that was the Trump Justice Department. That was Bill Barr who brought that case. So now in the interim, what happened? Well, Trump obviously lost. And where'd this case go? Well, apparently not far. You know, they picked up the judge in the other division. She pled guilty. Now they finally wrung out a confession or a deal out of Ozzie Myers. But like I said, somebody was paying this guy to get elected. That's part of the conspiracy. Where are those people? Who are those people? Damn it. That's easy. And if we had a functioning news media in this goddamn country, they should be all over that. Somewhere in Philadelphia, there are criminals, literally criminals, who bribed election officials to help them get elected. That has happened. This is a fact. This is a fact. Where are they? Justice Department knows who they are. Why are they not bringing cases against these people? Why has this not been done? Now, you know, I honestly just picked this story up and I just read it to you as pretty much I read it. Maybe that's already out there. Maybe that's already happened and I just missed it. You know, in other words, oh, well, here's the indictment on dog catcher Joe Smith. Here's the indictment on judge of elections, blah, blah, blah. Here's the indictment on this other dog catcher. You know, maybe it's already happened. I haven't heard it nor seen it. My gut instinct tells me it hasn't been done. I don't know why, because it's obvious. I mean, it's like you got the proof this guy took the payoff from who? You know, who paid this guy? Who paid Ozzie Myers? Because that guy is a criminal. That person is a criminal. And the same evidence that convicted Myers or caused him to cut a deal would convict that person. So you know, I may look around just to see if I'm wrong on that maybe that's already out there. I don't think it is. I question, you know, oh, well, this is great and all. And it confirms what we already knew, that this kind of voter fraud has happened, does happen, and will continue to happen as long as you have the kind of loose voting rules that we have in this country. But, you know, it's aggravating. It's satisfying on the one hand and it's aggravating on the other. But this is important, and that's why I'm bringing this to your attention. You need to know about this. So, like my headline is going to say, voter fraud confirmed in Philadelphia by Biden DOJ. That is what happened here on the 6th of June when they made this press release confirming that Ozzie Myers pled guilty to conspiracy, fraud, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just like we've all said has been going on here on the Republican side of the aisle. That's all I have for you. I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech. We'll talk again in a future episode. Thanks for coming. Hit the like button or, hey, even go ahead and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.